superstar. He is an absolute superstar, Tom Mitchell.
Cripps at the back. Cripps is too good.
Nil, yes! Oh, how good was that?
Right, how's this for a CV, Kudo? 278 games, 226 goals, AFL Hall of Fame, Lee Matthews Trophy, Carlton leading goal kicker. I'm sure I'm missing tons of things. Carlton Captain and Mayor to be of Melbourne soon.
Yeah.
You've done a lot in your footy. So why don't we start with footy? Because it's going to be a great chat around footy and politics where you are today. But what was your career highlight? Let's just go straight to the pointy end.
Yeah.
Career highlight with your time at Carlton where you played all your footy.
No doubt it was the 1995 premiership time. I'll never, ever forget that day and that entire season where we only lost 2 games for the entire year. And then when I think of the year before, 1994, we were on top of the ladder with 1 game to go and we lost to Essendon, so we finished second. And back then the finals was first play 8th, second play 7th. We played Melbourne, who was 7th. We lost that first final. We played Geelong. They had 4 of their top 10 players out and we got thrashed. So we went out in straight sets, lost the grand final in 93, should have really won one, probably in 94, because we annihilated West Coast at Princes Park back then as well. And that was probably around round 20. They went on to win the premiership. And then 1995, everyone was saying that we were too old and too slow. And so to only lose 2 games for the entire year, playing off in a grand final. I know, Tom, as a young kid, Mum and Dad didn't want me to play footy and weren't big fans of it. And then they became my biggest supporters. But I was never allowed to watch footy highlights. It was only grand final eve and grand final day that I was actually allowed to watch. And we used to sit there with my brother Paul and watch it as much as we could. But I never imagined myself being out there on grand final day. And that day there, halfway through last quarter, I finally realised I was about to be a premiership player. And still to this day, 29 years later, it's still the highlight of my life.
Is that right? So you still, I assume, stay close with the guys that you would have played with? Like, name some of the names in that team because it's pretty star-studded.
Yeah, we'll talk with the skipper first. I mean, you got Stephen Kernahan, and you got Craig Bradley, you got Stephen Silvani, you got Greg Williams, who I thought was the greatest player I played with. Can't forget my mate Ange, but Peter Dean, the general down back, had Earl Sporting running through everyone. Had Brett Radden, Fraser Brown, Michael Sexton. I'm going to forget Glenn Mann, one of my camp rally.
Yeah.
But that's how Rice, Clapper, all these players that I had the luxury. Michael Sexton, the unsung hero too. I mean, they're just. When Carlton supporters talk to me now, Tom, they always reflect back to the 90s because of that dominating era that we had, and only to win 1 premiership, but the star-studded lineup that I got the privilege to play with. I don't think the supporters will ever forget the team that we had, and let's not forget the Cranium Milhana. I probably forgot to mention him too.
Better give the old man a plug too. He didn't play,
Barry,
obviously,
I know, he didn't.
I think 94 he had a pretty decent year.
He
and
did.
Then I think he mentioned he went out in straight sets. Yeah.
He was so tough and hard and trained like an animal, he did, Tom, probably to the point where he probably broke his body down. But I know when he came to Carlton, I instantly hit it off with him and became really good mates and had like many social nights out with him and footy trips and stuff. And he was always one that I loved from day one. I don't know what it was, I connected with him. And then once he retired, your dad would often ring me after a game and he would watch me play and give me tips. And I would always take it and listen to him and then, apply it that next week. And then we were lucky enough that he became our fitness guy when he came to Carlton. And I don't know what sort of background he had in terms of fitness. He may not have had a diploma and all that, but
grind yourself into the ground, basically.
But, Tom, he was the best fitness coach that I had.
Is that right?
And so sometimes it's not about the certificates you have, but understanding the people and the personnel. And we were fitter than ever, I reckon, when your dad was at the football club. And he became my greatest mentor. I had a love attraction with your dad.
Yes.
And not only was he funny and built he was just had an amazing body and physique for a guy his size and strong and powerful. But yeah, he gave me so much time and I learnt more about footy between him and Wayne Britton, more about footy than anyone else. So I still love the old man and I'm forever indebted to him for what he taught me about footy. And he was the one, and Wayne Britton were the ones who, in particular your dad, who spotted me out and said, this guy can play not only in any position, but he can do things for the team that maybe other players couldn't do. And if it wasn't for them to identify that ability out of me, I more than likely would have had the career that I did. And so as much as I love David Parkin, I don't think he extracted the best out of me until Barry, your dad, and Wayne Britton came to the club.
Yeah. It's so interesting you talk about your versatility, and it sounds like you might have struggled with a bit of self-belief early in your career. Would that be fair to say? And because you did mention you went on to play multiple positions, centre back. My earliest memories of going to Optus Oval, and I obviously had 43 on my back, we're just having a laugh off air. I've got some photos of you. You come to my 7th birthday, 1999 grand final parade. I'm in the car with you. Got so many photos of growing up, idolising you. And my memories of you as a player are at Optus Oval, games in the balance. They'd actually throw you to full forward. You'd probably had your 25 to 30 for the first 3 quarters, throw you forward, you kick 3 or 4. And the whole crowd would just chant, Kouta, Kouta, Kouta. And so that's why I loved you. But explain to people who missed your generation what sort of player you were.
Yeah, it's a funny one, Tom, because I was on the list in 91 not getting a game. And then 1992, I played 6 games. I played, full back in the reserves and won the reserves best and fairest that year. 1993, I played 8 games and I was emergency for the grand final. And I played the first half of 1994 and I got dropped. So 3.5 years into my career, lacking confidence. I don't think, because I probably didn't believe that the coach believed in me, and so that probably didn't help either. And I thought it was the end of my career. And I went to see a sports psychologist, Anthony Stewart, who taught me these words: I can, I will, you just watch me. And those words, he said, Kouta, you got to write them in your diary every single day and highlight them. Those words changed my life. I got picked not long after that and never looked back from that moment. And so I never expected what was going to occur after halfway through 1994. If someone had said, Kouta, don't worry, you'll be best and fairest premiership player, all Australian at the end, mate, you're going to make the AFL Hall of Fame, I would have said you're mad. Yeah. But that's what did occur. So it took me a long time to become the player that I was. I went from tagging players to then be tagged, playing in the ruck, playing full forward.
The ultimate swingman.
Just anywhere that the club needed me. I sometimes think, Tom, if I just played my entire career in the midfield, maybe I could have achieved a lot more individual awards. Yeah. But that made me different to any other player because I was the first player to sort of be that one where you could just throw when needed to. Yeah. And then when the game was in the balance and say, right, go full forward and kick 1 or 2 or 3 and, just shock the opposition. And to hear the chants, Tom, the first time against West Coast in 1996 when I took 18 marks at Princes Park and we won by 1 point, and I took a mark with about 13 seconds to go in defence. And if I hadn't have marked that, Jason Ball was free, Michael Sexton had slept, he would have probably marked it on his chest. Yeah. We would have either been a draw or lost that game. But once that game, the siren went, the entire crowd of 20-odd thousand people were just chanting out, Kouta, Kouta. I was like, what is going on here?
That's
and
the iconic chant I remember. I was one of them.
Yeah, you were one of them. And so that's how privileged I was. Halfway through 1994, I never expected people to be chanting out Kouta, the entire stadium. And that happened on multiple occasions. So I was one of those very blessed and lucky ones that the supporters embraced me and probably loved the way that I played because I was a little bit unique, picking up the ball one hand and doing all those fancy things.
Did
and
that
taking
just come naturally?
That
you just started doing it? Can I see your hands? Yeah, you can be hands.
Ever since I was young, Tom, my older brother Paul, he was a year older than me, and in grade 6, he got a letter from the primary school teacher, had 2 Kouta, the only kid to pick up the football with one hand. So we were both doing it even in primary school. I don't know why or how. And we continued playing that way.
Parliament of basketball. I'm trying to think, who does it in today's game? Does anyone do it? You would know because you would look for it.
Not so much, I don't think so. Jared Brennan, I think at one stage, he was like unbelievable at it.
He was,
He really was. But I don't think there's anyone else really that sort of plays that way. You might see occasionally someone pick it up, maybe one hand.
Or someone.
Yeah.
I'm just reflecting on some of your biggest games because for whatever reason I've just got memories of you etched, whether it be at Optus or the MCG, but arguably your biggest game ever. Actually, let's start with the 95 granny because we always touched on that and then we can move on to 99. But 95 granny, I think Diesel won the Norm Smith.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
But he kicked 5 and had 20, but I'm not sure how the voting system worked, but you weren't far behind. You had 30-odd, so it would have been between the two of you?
Yeah, I dare say a lot of people, say, oh, no, Kouta, you should have won. He had 31 and kicked 5. I had 31 possessions, but I played on the wing, and I got Lee Colbert, the best tagger in Geelong, to come to me to try to stop me on that day. And so I had, he was an unbelievable player, but things fell my way that day. But I think in terms of the first half of setting up the guys to have a great lead by halftime, I probably was, leading the Norm Smith, but by the end, Diesel could sniff a goal, and he just, it was the first time, the first time I ever seen him go out of the square and go up forward, and he'll tell you it was very easy, right? So I think he could just smell, he was so competitive, Diesel, and I think for me, it was more like, man, I'm about to be a premiership player, and I didn't think so much about the Norm Smith and getting out there.
Yeah.
My third quarter was a little bit quieter, and being on the wing, Tom, when the players on the other half of the ground, you're like, come on, man, I just
Get it over you.
Yeah,
You can't just
and
hunt the nut.
Yeah, so if I played in the midfield that day, I don't know how many possessions I would have got, but look, I can't complain. There was a lot of close, sometimes the BNF or all Australians that I thought I deserved to be and it wasn't to be, but that's the way it pans out. And when I look at my achievements, I achieved far, far beyond what I could have ever imagined. But grand final day, I'll never forget, Tom, we were up by 80 odd points halfway through the last quarter, and I'm standing in the middle of the MCG looking around, 90 odd thousand people going, oh my God, I'm about to be a premiership player here. And you know the feeling, right? Yeah. But at 22 years of age, when everything was just, and you become like everyone's focus was on myself and Ange, and these young guns that were coming through the ranks. And at the end of the grand final, I mean, we celebrated for so many weeks, but I just remember the club just handing over like bags of letters to me and said, Kouta, we've never seen so many letters, written for one player. And they're like, there you go. And I had to like go through them all, reply back to all these supporters. It was a really different time, man. It was just like I was the focus of so many people then.
They're diehard, aren't they, the Carlton fans? And I see even today you go to a lot of Carlton games, they're craving that success, aren't they? And
they are.
You clearly still love the club, but do you feel like the club in its size has grown with its following, or do you reckon that 90s period was when Carlton was absolutely up and going, and you talk about being in the middle of the MCG with 90,000. Yeah, that's when the club was at the peak of its powers.
It was, Tom, and that's why I always think how lucky I was to have walked in the Carlton Football Club when I did, because they had decades of success, and I was a mad Collingwood supporter growing up.
Collingwood,
yeah. And my brother was Carlton.
You like him now?
No, I don't. I admire him as much as I give him slack. I still admire.
It's good banter.
Yeah, I don't want to think of putting that Collingwood jumper on again like when I was younger because I don't know what sort of feel. But I admire both footy clubs. I reckon Eddie Maguire did an incredible job for the Collingwood Football Club, and people may criticise, I don't know. But like he was the next, John Elliott was the man in my opinion, and then Eddie took over and he became the man of the AFL and took Collingwood to where they were. And Jack was the same thing at the Carlton Football Club. He promoted us. You would almost feel like we had the best facilities and had the best everything at the football club, but if you came within the football club, we didn't. But he just sort of gave that vision to people like, we're Carlton, we are the greatest, we never rebuild, you know what I mean? It's all that perception that he gave, and so we had that belief from him, and hence the reason why he created that wonderful culture, and when I was there to understand it. And so I was very lucky to have walked in when I did, to understand the power of the Carlton Football Club. I think we're getting glimpses of it now, and you could see last year, and when we started winning finals, 96,000 or whatever it was in the second week of the final.
Carlton Melbourne game, do you remember that a year or two ago? I was at that game too. That was incredible atmosphere.
Yeah, you felt like the stands were shaking at the end. It was I had a tear because finally you see Carlton up there again, and so I'm hoping the boys get to experience what I did, because we play football for premierships. And I hope they can experience it with the Carlton Football Club, because to me it's still the greatest football club. And hopefully, as they, if they start to win one or two, you'll see even more. I reckon
come from the clouds.
Yeah, they will. Correct.
Let's talk about arguably the best quarter of footy that's ever been played, according to Stephen Kernahan. It's the 99 prelim. I was also at this game as a 6-year-old.
Yeah.
So your last quarter to beat Essendon, who were the clear favourites to win the premiership that year. So it was a huge upset loss. Not sure what the odds would have been if they did sports betting or anything then, but you can probably talk to it better than I can. But your last quarter, you went into the midfield and drifted forward. You had 10 kicks, 6 marks, I assume a fair few contested, 4 clearances, 3 rebound 50s, so you're covering the field everywhere, kicked 2 goals, and helped the Blues overcome an 11-point deficit to famously beat the heavily favoured Bombers by 1 point. Elaborate.
Once again, I'll have to talk about John Elliott. I mean, that's the sort of impact he had on me, Tom. And the first time he came to me before a game and said, your day today, Kouta, I was like, oh my God, he knows my name. And so then I felt like I was part of the football club when he did that. But in 99, he came into the change rooms before the game and he said to me, Kouta, I've got a funny feeling about today. And he made me think about the Carlton history in the past. And this is me before a prelim final. I don't remember a lot, but I just remember thinking when Carlton would beat Collingwood when they weren't supposed to and win games they weren't supposed to. And I'm like, maybe he knows something I don't know. I remember your dad being in there too and just running out there, I think with that little bit more belief, because you have to remember Essendon beat us twice throughout that year, once by over 40 points and the next time by about 78. Wow. And David Parkin described us as a B-grade team. So coming into the prelim final, everyone was talking about Essendon. They were the unbeatables. And the Essendon supporters were lining up for grand final tickets. And at halftime, we're walking in, Tom and I'm walking in going, this is too easy. Maybe we're about to be in another grand final. This is unbelievable, right? But then Essendon came out in the third quarter and kicked, as far as I remember, 7-7, and then they hit the lead at 3/4 time.
High scoring in that day and age, wasn't it? Like you could
Yeah,
pile
just-
on points. And who were some of the big names on that squad?
In Essendon?
Yeah.
Oh, there was Matty Lloyd. Heard he didn't play that day. Longy was out there. There was Scotty Lucas. There was quite a few. I mean, Mark Mercury, Joe Mercedes. I mean, these guys that I still mates with, and I love those guys, and I think they're wonderful players. And so 3/4 time, Tom, I just remember, and I always looked at your dad because he was always one that would call, say, get Cooter in the middle, get Cooter in the middle. So I dare say it wasn't David Parkin. It was either your dad or Wayne Britton's gone, we've got to get him into the midfield. And they knew at the start of last quarter, I think Essendon kicked the first goal. So they didn't put me into the midfield at 3/4 time. But in the last quarter, I seen the runner come out to me, and I knew then instantly, because I'd often get calls, Cootie, you're forward, back, or whatever. I go, they're going to say you're in the midfield. And I got that call. And I was like an excited young kid. And only a couple of minutes later, Justin Murphy had that ball in the half-forward line, and I was basically on the wing, sprinting as hard as I could, thinking, just wait. And Murph could see me, and he just bombed it in, and I grabbed and marked that ball. And then turned around, kicked that goal, and it was on. And then the boys just all lifted and fired up. And, of course, Fraser Brown put on one of the greatest tackles of all time against Dean Wallace. When Mark Mercury would have kicked that goal just before then, he would have kicked it probably 99 times out of 100, Mercs.
Yeah.
Because to me, he was mercurial. But on this day, prelim final, he missed that goal, and so we're 1 point ahead. And once Fraser Brown put on that tackle, I was there, but I sort of jumped up, and the ball just went under my feet. And then Justin Murphy got it onto Rats, and then Rats onto Justin Murphy, and we go on to win. If you see your dad celebrating after, I think he had a tear. You need to watch it. He ran out.
It's iconic footage when Murphy throws the ball in the air too, you know?
Correct.
Do you reckon you played your granny that week though? Like
Yeah.
it was, you went into the 99 granny. How were you feeling going into that game? Obviously, I was in the car with you in the grand final parade, which is pretty funny. I'm going to get some photos for the listeners and put them up of us in the car, the motorcade together. So that was my first ever grand final parade. But what happened going to the next week? Were Carlton favourites to beat North?
No. North were favourites. They had a lot more consistent year. But just on you, Tom, I remember you as a young kid, man. I always having a kick with you before the game, and you were always around the club kicking the ball. I never imagined you one day become a Brownlow medalist, but look, that's how incredible you were. But I always kept an interest of you and how you were tracking through your father. And I know because you went to WA and you kept telling me how well you were going, but never bragged. And I didn't realise how good you were going. And then to see you win the Brownlow was a proud moment for me too, knowing you as a young kid and the way you are, and a great kid. And I loved your family. Both mum and dad were always exceptional towards me. But yeah, the 99 grand final, we played our grand final the week before. And I'm not putting North Melbourne down because they deserve to win. But if Essendon were there, they would have won that grand final. And I don't think North Melbourne were probably... they weren't an exceptional team, but they were ready to win a grand final. They lost in 98 that they should have won. But I don't think, they didn't play anything special, but we just gave nothing all day.
Right?
Yeah, and I started in defence. In hindsight, I should have just started in the midfield and just had a crack.
Yeah.
But it was the same old story. Where do you play Cooter? Started him in defence. I was on Corey, kicked 2 or 3 on me, you know what I mean? And then it was just a hard slog after that.
Yeah. Heading to year 2000, I was just looking at some numbers here. I'm going to read them out. So before your PCL injury, you were leading the Brownlow. This is the year that
draw.
you
I think
tie, still leading.
Tie, that's right.
Mate, if you tie it, you still win it. But you ended up with 19 votes. In this day and age, you're probably getting 50 votes like Cripper. But let's go through from round 7, some of your numbers. So you went 31-1, 39-2, 33-4, 30-3, 38-5, 28-1, 32-2, 29-2, 28-2, 33-3, 26-4, 22-2, 27-2. That's pretty incredible. And they're regarded as another Sticks quote, the best 10 games ever played in the AFL. And then you went down and did your PCL against Essendon. How deflating was that going down at the peak of your powers?
That was hard, Tom, because I think in those stats too, as far as I remember in the media, I was getting 3 votes every week. So I strung together so many games, and that was some of those games. You have to understand that I started centre-half back and went into midfield in halfway through second quarter. And I remember the Sydney game when I had 39 and kicked 2, but the game was sort of in the balance halfway through. And once they put me into the midfield, by halftime the game was over. And so I was able to just turn games around. But it was hard, Tom, because ever since I was a young kid, I always played my best, and even if it was athletics at Victorian champs or nationals, I would always produce my best. And I was the same even in footy come finals.
Yeah.
I'd somehow always do something. Even if I didn't have a great game, I'd be able to turn games around in finals. I was one of those big game kind of players, and although maybe you don't yet need to look back and it might sound like I'm bragging, I always just loved playing finals footy. I always came alive. Even under 19s when I was playing at Carlton and I wouldn't have a great year, I'd always somehow fire up come finals time. And so it was hard for me because I was at the peak of my powers, and I felt like we really had a chance in 2000. We won 13 games in a row as a football club.
Right?
Yeah, and we just lost to the Bulldogs. And then we had Essendon in round 20 when I injured myself, and they were undefeated. And I injured myself in the first quarter, and I think Braddles did also. And we only lost by 20-odd points. To think your two really good players are out, and to only lose by that amount. I felt like Essendon deserved to be winners and probably would have won. But, geez, I would have loved to have seen us play against them in the finals, like beating them in 99 prelim final. That might have been something in their head that we could have, utilised for ourselves. But we never had that opportunity because, unfortunately, round 20, there was 90-odd thousand people. Essendon on top, Carlton second. People just could not wait for this game.
That's the game that you got injured in.
Yeah, and that was the game.
Did you get stretchered that game?
No. Jason Johnson came with a flight of the ball, and as I was going off the mark and just hit my knee, and I was like, oh, something's wrong here.
Yeah.
That should have been a 4 to 6 week injury, but I tried to come back in the second week of the finals, and I gave myself the clearance. In that training, they've gone, just go for one more mark, and I went for this mark, and something inside my knee just clicked, and my knee just went zzz, and that was it. I was done and dusted. It took me 9 months to recover. The game you talk about when I got stretchered was the next year in 01 when I found unbelievable form late in the season. I had a great year, but at the end of the season I was starting to get BOGs again, and I was best on ground the first week of the final against Adelaide, and we destroyed Adelaide. And then that next week against Richmond I did my knee and I did my ACL, and that's when I got stretchered. So you probably remember that.
I remember the game. I remember this is so bizarre that you can remember memories from. I would have been 7, and I remember exactly whereabouts on the G I was sitting, and you're getting stretched off. I think I might have cried, but but yeah, that's I've kind of related to that a little bit in that on a personal level, probably played my best ever season in 2018.
Yep. Similar
to yourself and your story, you're at your absolute peak, physical. You feel your absolute best, unbeatable in a sense in one-on-one contests and things, and then snap my leg in half, it's you always wonder like what could have been, you're always probably as grateful as you are for what you did achieve in your footy, but what could have been. Imagine if you kept that form up for another couple of years. Do you ever think about that in that, I guess negative frame of mind as what could have been, or you're just grateful for what you did?
I look at my career and think I'm very thankful and grateful to achieve what I did, because I never would have expected it going into the football club. And although I had achieved incredible things in both athletics and football growing up, I was never a confident guy and never thought I could be, maybe the best player at the football club. But in hindsight, 100% time, I don't know how many times I should have maybe been, all Australian, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 more times, and maybe another BNF here and there when I finished second in 99, when I missed, 5 games. In year 2000, I came third when I had my best year in the BNF. So although I only won 2. I shouldn't say only. I won 2. I could have easily have won 1 or 2 or 3 more. So I look back and think, what if I just played solely in the midfield my entire career as well? Yeah. On a personal level, I may have achieved a lot more. But I look back and I think, that's life, and it's taught me to be humble and continue on and grateful for, what I was able to achieve. It could have been worse. And some players don't even get that opportunity to play, Tom, as you know, and get injuries from when they first start. But I do remember your season, Tom, when you were racking up 40 and 50. I got excited by just watching your stats every week because I'd never seen anything like it. And then when I heard that you broke your leg, that was devastating news for me as well, because as you know, I love how much I love your dad, and your mum was a beautiful lady also, but your dad had such an impact on my life. So I look to you and go, and I just wish you all the best as well. So to see you win the premiership as much as I didn't want Collingwood to win that, you can imagine, right?
Yeah.
I was barracking for
Brisbane. Didn't bring out the pies jumper from when you were younger to throw on for the day?
No, I didn't, because I wanted to skip the country because I knew all my Collingwood mates were just going to hammer me. So I copped it as fair, and I deserved it as well. But you made the difference that day on the grand final day, Tom, and so I was rapt when I was able to watch it. It was the only thing I think that I could smile about Collingwood was see you change the game for them, man. If it wasn't for your hardness, that's what I think. I'm no expert in footy, but watching it myself, I mean, you were the difference and the reason why Collingwood got over the line.
I appreciate it. It's probably a little bit biased, but I
that's
appreciate
right.
the kind
I
words.
don't think so, man. I reckon it was you and those, mate. What you did was unbelievable. It turned the game for you guys, yeah.
When you talk about yourself, because there's a lot of young sportsmen listening, and your ability to step up in big games and big moments, like how? Like you spoke about your sports psychologist and the strategy you put in place. Is it something within you that brings that out of you, or is it, you're obviously gifted athletically? Is it a combination? If you could give someone advice for how to step up in a big game or a big moment, what are a couple of things you would say?
To be honest, I don't know what it was, Tom. Ever since I was a young kid, I don't know, I'd produce my best at state level athletics or nationals, and even footy was the same. I still had that ability, even playing down at Lala Football Club, to sort of turn games around for the football club. So I don't know, and I can't pinpoint how. I still got nervous. I still felt the pressure like anyone else, but I don't know what it was about the big games. But I always prepared, as well as I could. But as a junior, I don't know if I could say I had freaky kind of ability, that athleticism that maybe got me through. And I was in the Carlton. At 14, I got invited down to the Carlton Football Club, and I made the under-15 junior development squad at Carlton. It was either Bert Deacon or Phillips squad or whatever it was, as a bottom age, and then made it the next year. And that was without any guidance from parents. It was just, I guess, natural ability. And why I stood out from everyone else is because my athleticism, having that high jump ability, being an athlete. Because certainly in terms of footy, I could mark the ball, but when the ball was on the ground, I wasn't that good. But for that ability to be able to run and jump, that's what I did, and probably made me different. And being at my height, being able to even ruck then. I mean, I made the Victorian under-15 schoolboys team, and I was emergency or on the bench most of the time until the last two games against South Australia and WA. They threw me in the ruck, and they were my two best games against the two.
Grabbing at one end of the ruck like that.
I didn't quite do that.
Fend them off with one arm, the old clunk.
I don't know if I was doing it back then, Tom. I don't know if I don't know. I'm sure if I did, they would have told me. Maybe I wasn't. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Let's do a complete 180 now, because I love the footy side of Kouta. I could chat about it all day. That's my whole childhood.
Yeah.
But Kouta right now and what you're doing, talk to us about how you've got into politics, first of all, because you're a potential candidate to be the Mayor of Melbourne, which is huge. You would probably never have thought Mayor of Melbourne and Kouta, those two things would go together. But talk to us about how you've actually got into politics and how things are going.
Yeah, I'm very grateful and thankful. I grew up with two migrant parents and who didn't want me to play football, but I was able to live my dream. But I love the city of Melbourne also, and grew up there and spent so many wonderful times and great memories around the city of Melbourne. And then I was asked a year ago, and I just wasn't quite ready, and asked a few months ago whether I'd want to run for the Lord Mayor of Melbourne. And after a little bit of consideration and support from my wife and my friends, I thought, let me look into it a little bit more. And I thought, let's have a go. I'm not a politician. I just don't like the state that the city's in right now. And talking, getting deeper into it and listening to people too, there's a lot of people that are suffering out there. And so hence the reason why, because I just think, Tom, as much as I've had an impact on people maybe playing, Australian rules football, and maybe giving the hope to the migrants to say, you know what, if you could do it, maybe I can do it too. To me, to have an impact on the city of Melbourne, if I get that opportunity, it would be an absolute privilege, and I wouldn't take it lightly, to change the Melbourne, the city of Melbourne. And that's the surrounding part, suburbs too. It's a massive city. So it's not just CBD, as I say, city of Melbourne. It's everyone who's involved there, and impact them and bring the city forward and make it the most livable city in the world again. That I could look back and go, wow, footballer, all of a sudden, not a politician, but more like a people's person representing the people of the city of Melbourne and everyone else who see the city right now. And there's many reasons why they don't come in. I want to change that perception.
Yeah. And your purpose in life, this feels probably bigger than footy. I assume your footy had such an impact on people. You brought them so much joy, but this is genuinely impacting and supporting people's lives. So what are some of the key pillars of what you're really trying to push? I know safety is a really big one with you.
It is. So, Tom, if I can take a little bit and go backwards a little, like when I look to Melbourne or Victoria, and I think, why do people come here? I was just in Sydney, and Sydney, you've got better beaches, let's be honest, and the weather's better. Yeah. And, that maybe South Australia, you go to the wineries or whatever it is. Queensland's got the weather and all these options. You can go Gold Coast, Brisbane, you've got the Sunshine Coast. You can fly up a little bit, you've got Cairns. But when I look to Victoria, I see our sporting events, but I see like the city of Melbourne as the main attraction, because our city is like no other. And although I was in Sydney and it's thriving there, the city's not as like what we've got it. It is just a beautiful city. And so they come here because of the sporting events. We're the fashion capital, best coffees in the world, incredible cafes, world-class restaurants. You know, we've got the retail. We've got everything here, laneways that other cities don't have that thrive. You look like you feel like you're in Europe, you know. And right now it's not that way. And a lot of people feel unsafe. And only recently some innocent person walking through the city down Elizabeth Street has been murdered. You know what I mean? And this is the city of Melbourne. When I grew up, the safety was never a concern. We had freedom to be able to roam around. And I understand time has changed, but I want people to feel safe walking into the city. And right now they don't. And I know myself spending more time in there now, as I might have dinner at night and I'm walking out. I'm actually looking back to see who's around, because there'll be guys, you know, yelling out things. They might be under the influence of certain things, and you get worried. And that's me. And I can only imagine, you know, how the ladies feel out there, or young kids or families walking through the city. And I don't want that. And so safety is important. And our policy is we're going to have safety booths around the hotspots of the city. That includes Docklands and any other parts of the city of Melbourne that we need to. We're going to have an increased number of police presence by subsidising car parks for them, or giving them free car parks. Can you believe, Tom? The city of Melbourne won't even give them free or subsidise their car parks, and then we can get more people in. And that's by talking to the police association. So we'll have PCOs walking around the city 24/7. We're going to have more cameras. We'll lighten up areas. I really dislike the graffiti around the city as well. And I can't say eliminate, really minimise that. And people might go, how, whatever. Well, if there's a purpose and you really want to, you can resolve things. So to me, safety is priority. No matter what I do, the people won't come into the city if they don't feel safe.
Yeah, no, that's well said. And even you touched on, you know, whether it be homelessness and other key issues, there's so much good you're doing. So how can we actually support you in getting behind your campaign? Because I'm voting one for Kouta, but how does everyone else do it?
I've got a vote card in there. I probably should have. Maybe we'll get it on camera later or whatever. But yeah, just any residents or property owners or business owners in the city of Melbourne, and it's a big area. It's called Docklands, East Melbourne, West Melbourne, Kensington. We've got the Flemington Racecourse. We've got Fisherman's Bend. We've got Carlton North, Parkville, North Melbourne.
I think you'll get a few votes in Carlton.
You would hope so. You would hope so.
Log on straight, step up.
Yeah. So it's all those people, and there's other areas too, but all those people that have that opportunity to vote. And so it's not long now, Tom, before we do find out. And it's going to be interesting, because even the homeless is, you know, those people would be, I can only imagine what it would be like to sleep in the streets, you know, of Melbourne, and in a time when safety's not, you know.
that would be super tough.
Yeah. And so, you know, the crisis housing that we're thinking about, actually providing a City of Melbourne building there with health service people there and people that they need to talk to. And so they've got support, they've got their own room, they've got their own kitchenette, they've got their own bathroom. So if they don't, some people don't like to be out there in the public too, and they need a little bit of isolation, which we need to get them out of there and get them into the community. Don't get me wrong, but they need their own little space as well, and so we want to provide that. So we get them off the street. We look after them in the sense that they've got a roof over their head, and that way they feel more comfortable, and they've got people there to talk to as well. So we can support them in that way instead of just leaving them out there.
Social isolation would be a big one too. So is that more about putting resources towards people that need help, or is it a little bit about the, people finding something within themselves to put themselves out there? And then, affordable housing is obviously an issue as well for everyone. The cost of living is really tough.
Correct. Yeah. So with the homeless part, I mean, obviously there would need, the federal government, the state government, because it's all impacted by all their decisions of, the way things are economically. It is tough times, and we need your social and healthcare workers. We need support for philanthropists to help us out also. And I'm sure, because Melbourne is such a kind-hearted community and Victorians, that they'll put an effort into to help the homeless. But in terms of affordable housing too, we've spoken to the property experts. We believe there's 80 buildings around the city, if available, to convert to affordable housing. And by that means the people like your cleaners, healthcare workers, and these key workers that are important for the city can actually come and live here and not have to travel from an hour away, come in, quite expensive for them. They don't get paid enough. And how good would that be, Tom? Living in the city and having access to be able to work in there as well. And so they're the things that we want to apply, because we feel like that's important.
Yeah. You can see the passion you have talking about it. So I'm sure if things fall your way, which hopefully they do, you're going to do an awesome job. But Kouta, thanks so much for the chat today. Absolutely loved it. You're a busy man, so you've given us a chop out and help you out Ball Magnus. But I love those Carlton stories, because I was a Carlton diehard as a kid,
Yeah.
and we've got to have done a backflip,
know.
haven't we? Like I'm pure Collingwood now. You were Collingwood, now pure Carlton. But hopefully for your sake, there's some success around the corner. But mate, thanks again, and all the best with this upcoming campaign too.
Thanks, mate. I appreciate your time, Tom. I'm a big admirer, as much as you were of me. Now I'm an admirer of you. So
Times
keep up the
have
good
changed.
work, mate. Ball magnets, good work.
Thanks, Cooter.
Thanks.
Cheers.